Hello everyone. In 1965, if you invested $1 in the general stock market, 30 years later, you will have $56. Not bad, right? But if you invested that same dollar in a company that went from good to great, you would have around $471. That's not a typo. $471. What did these companies know that others did not? Jim Collins and his research team spent 5 years analyzing 1,435 companies to answer one question: can a good company become a great company? And if so, how? The answer will challenge everything you think you know about business success. Forget charismatic CEOs, forget technology as the primary driver, forget massive change programs. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to share 10 breakthrough concepts that separate mediocrity from greatness. And here's the thing: these principles don't just apply to billion-dollar corporations, they apply to your career, your projects, even your personal life. Stay until the end because the 10th principle is the one of the most people miss, and it's the difference between temporary success and lasting greatness. Point number one: level 5 leadership. Let's start with leadership because this is where Collins blows apart conventional wisdom. When you think of a great leader, you probably picture someone like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, bold, charismatic, larger than life. But Collins discovered something shocking. The leaders who took companies from good to great were the opposite of celebrities. He calls them level 5 leaders, and they have a paradoxical combination: extreme personal humility combined with intense professional will. Take a real example: Darwin Smith of Kimberly Clark. In 1971, Darwin Smith became the CEO of Kimberly Clark, a medical paper company. He was an off-guard, introverted lawyer. The board actually asked him if he was sure he could do the job. Smith made one of the boldest moves in business history. He sold the company's paper mills, the very core of their business, for 100 years to bet everything on consumer paper products. They would go head to head with Procter and Gamble, one of the most powerful companies in the world. People thought he was insane, but Smith did not care about his image. He cared about results. Over the next 20 years, Kimberly Clark beat Procter and Gamble and generated cumulative stock returns 4 times better than the general market. Smith never appeared on the cover of business magazines when asked about the success. He did credit luck on his team, the level 5 mirror and window. Here's the pattern. Level 5 leaders look in the mirror when things go wrong, taking personal responsibility, but they look out the window when things go right, crediting others, luck, and external factors. Compare this to comparison company leaders who did the opposite. They looked out the window to blame others when things went wrong, but looked in the mirror to take credit when things went right. Your application. Are you building yourself up or building something greater than yourself? True leadership is not about being the star. It's about making others shine while taking ultimate responsibility for outcomes. Point number two: first who, then what. Here's how most people think about building something great. First, figure out where you want to go, then get the right people to take you here. There. Collins found the great companies it backwards. The bus analogy. Think of your organization as a bus. Most leaders think I need to figure out where I want to drive this bus. Then I'll get people on board to help me get there. Level 5 leaders thought, first I need to get the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats. Then I will figure out where to drive it. This sounds crazy, but here's the genius. When you have the right people, they will adapt to almost any direction. When you have the wrong people, even the best vision in the world won't save you. Take a real example: Wells Fargo versus Bank of America. In 1980s, both banks faced massive deregulation that changed everything. Bank of America had a clear vision: first, they would become the dominant bank through aggressive growth and technology. Wells Fargo CEO Dick Cole took the opposite approach. He did not pretend to know what deregulation would bring. Instead, he said, I don't know where we are going yet, but I'm going to pack this bus with the best banking talent in America and we will figure it out together. He hired rigorously. He confronted brutal facts. He have great people freedom to adapt. Result: Wells Fargo stock returns crashed Bank of America by 2000. Wells Fargo was actually worth more than Bank of America despite being much smaller when deregulation hit. The three disciplines: when in doubt, don't hire, keep locking. Good to great companies understood that growth is not the goal if you dilute your talent pool. When you know you need to make a people change, act immediately. Waiting is both unfair to the person and destructive to the organization. Put your best people on your biggest opportunities, not your biggest problems. Average companies do the opposite. Your application: stop asking what should I do. Start asking who should I do it with. The right people will make an average idea work. The wrong people will sabotage a brilliant idea. Point number 3: confront the brutal facts. This principle saved my perspective on life and it might save yours too. You cannot make good decisions without confronting brutal reality. But here the paradox: you must maintain absolute faith that you will prevail, while simultaneously confronting the most brutal facts of our current reality. Collins calls this the Stockdale paradox, named after Admiral Jim Stockdale. Take a real example: Admiral James Stockdale. Stockdale was the highest ranking US military officer impressed in Vietnam. He was tortured over 20 times during the 8 years in the Hanoi Hilton with no prisoner rights, no release date, and no certainty of survival. Collins asked him, who did not make it out? Stockdale replied, the optimist. They were the ones who said, we are going to be out by Christmas. Christmas would come and go. Then they will say, we are going to be out by Easter. Easter would come and go. Then Thanksgiving. Then Christmas again. Eventually, they died of a broken heart. Then Stockdale said something profound. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose. With the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be, business application might be. Business application. Roger versus A&P. In 1970s, both were successful grocery chains, but the world has changing. Supermarkets were becoming superstores. A&P's leaders could not confront reality. They held onto nostalgia for their past glory as the great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company. They made half-hearted attempts to change while denying the brutal truth. Their whole business model was obsolete. Kroger's leader, led by CEO Ly Evergram, conducted painful assessments. They held what Collins calls autopsies without blame, honest examinations of failures to learn, not to punish. They confronted the brutal fact we must completely reinvent the grocery store to or die. They eliminated, changed, or rebuilt every single store to become modern superstores. It was agonizing, but they faced reality with unwavering faith they would prevail. Result: Roger became one of the America's great companies. E&P went bankrupt. Your application: what brutal fact are you avoiding right now in your career, your business, your relationship, your health? You can face reality and maintain faith. In fact, you must do both. Point number 4: the Hedgehog Concept. If you only remember one concept from this video, make it this one. This is the framework that can transform your entire approach to success. The fox versus the hedgehog. Collins borrowed from an ancient Greek parable. The fox knows many things, but the hedgehog knows one big thing. The fox is cunning and pursues the hedgehog with hundreds of strategies. The hedgehog simply crawls into a ball of spikes and wins every time. Good to great companies are hedgehogs. Comparison companies are foxes, scattered, diffused, inconsistent. The three circles. Your hedgehog concept sits at the intersection of three circles. Circle 1. What can you be the best in the world at? Not what you want to be and the best at. Not what you are currently good at. What can you potentially be the absolute best at? This is brutally honest self-assessment. Good to great companies understood what they could not be the best at and stopped doing those things. Circle 2. What drives your economic engine? Great companies identify the single denominator that had the greatest impact on their economics, their economic engine. Circle 3. What are you deeply passionate about? You can't sustain greatness without passion, but passion alone is useless without the other two circles. Take a real example, Walgreens. In 1970s, Walgreens had food service in stores. They ran restaurants, but their CEO, Cork Walgreen, asked a transformative question. Can we be the best in the world at running restaurants? The honest answer, no. But could they be the best at convenient drugstores? Yes. Their economic insight was brilliant. Profit per customer visit. They realized that convenience, being on the corner where people need them, was everything. So they embarked on a massive program. Close restaurants, focus entirely on drugstores and locate them at the most convenient corners, even if it meant tearing down a less convenient location across the street. From 1975 to 2000, Walgreens beat Intel, GE, Coca-Cola, and virtually everyone else with the stock returns 15 times the general market. Real example, take it. Philip Morris. People forget that Philip Morris became one of the best performing stocks in history. How? They found their hedgehog concept at the intersection of three circles. Best in the world at creating brands that encourage habitual purchase and inspire customer loyalty. Controversial but true. Economic engine, profit per brand. Passion, building powerful consumer brands. They applied this to cigarettes, then took those same principle into food buying, craft, general foods and others. They were so good at their hedgehog concept that they turned even mundane products into consumer favorites. Your application. Draw three circles. Honestly answer each question. Where they overlap is your path to the greatness. Everything else is distraction. Stop being a fox, become a hedgehog. Point number 5. A culture of discipline. Most people think discipline means zero accuracy, hierarchy, and control. Collins found the opposite. When you combine a culture of discipline with an ethic of entrepreneurship, you get magic. You get freedom and responsibility, dynamic that separates great from good. The key insight: disciplined people, disciplined thought, disciplined action. Here's what counterintuitive. A culture of discipline is not about tyrannical leadership. It's about getting disciplined people who engage in disciplined thought and take disciplined action. When you have disciplined people, you don't need hierarchy. When you have disciplined thought, you don't need bureaucracy. When you have disciplined action, you don't need excessive controls. Take a real example. Nuclear steel. The American steel industry was dying in the 1970s and 80s, but Bethlehem Steel, once a titan, would eventually collapse, but one company thrived, Nucor. Their culture was radically different. They had only 4 layers of management between the CEO and the frontline worker. Compare that to 12 layers at Bethlehem Steel. But here's the discipline part. Nucor gave plant managers enormous freedom. They could make decisions worth millions of dollars without corporate approval. But they had to stay within Hedgehog concept, the best at making low-cost steel through minimal technology. And they had to meet strict performance standard. Workers could earn bonuses 150 to 200% of their base pay. But if they produced defective steel, their entire week's bonus disappeared. Strict discipline, total freedom within framework. Their production workers averaged over $80,000 in annual compensation in the 1990s, while competitors, unionized workers, earned less than the companies went bankrupt. The culture was not about comfort, it was about performance with a freedom. The stop doing list. Here's a powerful exercise Collins found. Good to great companies were as disciplined about what they would not do as what they would do. Most people have endless to-do list. Great companies and great people maintain stop doing list. If something does not fit the hedgehog concept, do stop doing it. No matter how profitable, no matter how attractive, no matter how much someone else wants you to do it. Take a real example. Philip Morris. Again, when Philip Morris acquired 7 Up, they realized it did not fit their hedgehog concept. Soft drinks were not about building brand loyalty through habitual purchase in the same way. So they sold it even though it was profitable because it was not the right fit. That's discipline. Your application. What you are doing simply because you can, not because you should. What needs to go on your stop doing list? Discipline is not about doing more, it's about doing less with greater intensity and focus. Point number 6, technology accelerators. Here's where Collins destroy another myth. Technology does not create greatness. Good to great companies use technology differently than comparison companies, and understanding this difference could save you from wasting millions or years of your life. Technology was as accelerator, not creator. Every comparison company that failed hoped technology would solve their problems. They jumped on technology fads, they made technology the foundation of their strategy. Good to great companies thought differently. Technology is an accelerator of momentum, not a creator of it. Think about it. If you have the wrong people on the bus, technology won't save you. If we have not confronted brutal facts, technology will simply help you go faster in the wrong direction. If you don't have a Hedgehog concept, technology will just accelerate your confusion. But if you have the right people, face reality, and know your Hedgehog concept, then technology becomes incredibly powerful. Take a real example, Walgreens versus Eckert. In the late 1990s, everyone panicked about the internet. Eckert, a Walgreens competitor, rushed to build a website fearing online pharmacies would destroy them. Walgreens asked a different question. How does technology accelerate our Hedgehog concept of convenient drugstores? Their insight was brilliant. They pioneered ordering prescription refills online and over the phone, but you picked them up at the physical store. This drove more traffic to convenient locations where customers bought other items. Technology accelerated their Hedgehog concept instead of replacing it. Eckert, they are gone. Walgreens thrived. Take a real example. Nucor versus Bethlehem Steel. Bethlehem Steel saw minimal technology and dismissed it because it did not fit their enormous blast furnaces and could only make low-grade steel products. Nucor saw the same technology and asked, can this accelerate our Hedgehog concept of being the best at low-cost steel production? They pioneered mini mills while Bethlehem clung to old technology for high-grade steel. Eventually, minimal technology improved enough to make all grades of steel. New core became great. Bethlehem went bankrupt. For application, before jumping on the last technology trend, AI, blockchain, whatever comes next, ask yourself, does this accelerate my Hedgehog concept or am I just afraid of being left behind? Fear-driven technology adoption leads to disaster. Purpose-driven technology adoption leads to acceleration. Point number 7, the flywheel effect. This concept changed how I think about every goal in my life, and it will destroy your obsession with quick fixes. The flywheel versus the doom loop. Picture a huge, heavy flywheel, a massive metal disc mounted horizontally on an axle about 30 feet in a diameter, 2 feet thick, and weighing 5,000 pounds. Your task is to get it rotating as fast as possible to push with enormous effort. The flywheel barely moves. You keep pushing it inches forward. You keep pushing day after day, week after week, month after month. Then one day, the flywheel starts moving faster. You keep pushing, it accelerates, more momentum builds. Eventually, it's spinning faster and faster, and you are barely pushing. The momentum carries it forward. That's how good to great companies transformations happen. There was no single defining action, no grand program, no killer innovation, just consistent pushing in a consistent direction. Each turn of the flywheel builds upon previous work, compounding your investment of effort. Take a real example. Roger's transformation. When Roger decided to transform into superstores, journalists wanted to know what was the one big moment, what was the key decision. The executives could not answer because there was not one moment. There were thousands of decisions, all consistent with their Hedgehog concept, each building on the last. They pushed the flywheel, eliminated or rebuilt every single store, consistency, invented in employee training, building capability, improved in inventory systems, reinforcing efficiency, closed unprofitable stores without sentimentally discipline, opened new stores only when they fit to the concept, more discipline. Each action was unremarkable in isolation, but together compounded over 15 years, they created unstoppable movement. When people looked from the outside, they saw a company suddenly dominating. From the inside, it felt like grinding work, building momentum turn by turn. The doom loop, how comparison companies failed. Comparison companies fell into what Collins calls their doom loop. Instead of building momentum, they jumped from strategy to strategy without building momentum in any direction. Launched big programs hoping for instant transformation. Looked for silver bullets, the one miracle solution. Changed direction before momentum built. Went through chronic re- res- restructuring and leadership changes. Then they point to their huge efforts and wonder why nothing worked. They never understood you cannot skip building momentum. There are no shortcuts. The flywheel does not spin because one of massive push. It spins because of consistent effort in a consistent direction. Real example, your personal life. Think about fitness. The doom loop approach. Join a gym with enormous enthusiasm in January. Push incredibly hard for 2 weeks. See minimum results. Get discouraged. Stop. Trying a different program 6 months later. Same cycle. The flywheel approach start with the sustainable habits aligned with your Hedgehog concept. What you can be best at, what you are passionate about, what drives your health engine. Push consistently, miss a day, don't restart, just keep pushing. Each workout builds on the last. After months, you notice you are stronger. After years, you are transformed. People think it happened overnight. You know it was the flywheel. Your obligation. Stop looking for breakthroughs. Start pushing your flywheel. What's the consistent direction aligned with your hedgehog concept? Push it today, push it tomorrow, push it for years. That's how greatness happens. Point number 8, the 20-mile march. This concept comes from Collins follow-up research, but it's too powerful not to include. Imagine two teams racing to the South Pole from the same starting point in Antarctica. The first team, led by Roald Amundsen, has a simple principle. No matter the weather, no matter how they feel, they march 15 to 20 miles every day. Not more on good days, not less on bad days. A second team, led by Robert Falcon Scott, has a different approach. March as far as possible on good days, rest on bad days. Amundsen reached the South Pole first and returned safely. Scott and his entire team died. The power of consistency. Good to great companies practiced what Collins calls the 20-mile march, self-imposed constraints that create consistency in an uncertain world. When times were good and opportunities everywhere, they did not overextend. When times were tough and the threats surrounded them, they did not panic or cruel into a ball. They maintained consistent performance markets. Real example, Southwest Airlines versus PSA. In the volatile airline industry, most companies expanded aggressively during the boom times and retrenched, retrenched during bust. Southwest Airlines under Herb Heller set strict performance markers, their 20-mile march, profitability every single year, specific return on investment thresholds before adding new routes, controlled growth rates even when they could have grown faster, maintained standards even during downturns. When the industry boomed in the 1990s, Southwest grew more slowly than they could have. When the industry crashed post 9/11, Southwest was the only major airline that remained profitable because they had not overextended. From 1970 to 2002, Southwest stock returns beat the market by over 5x and crushed every other airline, including previously successful companies that failed to maintain their 20-mile march. Take a real example, Intel versus AMD. In the semiconductor industry, companies often bet everything on the next big technology, going all in during boom times and scrambling during bust. Intel under anti-growth maintained brutal discipline. They set strict hurdle rates for investment during the boom times of the late 1980s. When competitors expanded capacity wildly, Intel grew more slowly, even though they could have expanded faster. When the tech crash came in 2001, Intel's discipline protected them. Companies that had overextended during good times faced catastrophe. The two pillars of the 20-mile march. Lower bound, self-imposed constraints that keep you from overreaching in good times. When you are winning, the temptation is to go all in. Great companies resist this. Upper bound, self-imposed commitment that keeps you from the underperforming in tough times. When things are hard, the temptation is to be abandon, abandon your principles. Great companies push through. Your application. What's your 20-mile march? If you are building something, a business, a skill, a creative project, what's your consistent commitment regardless of circumstances? Not 40 miles on inspired days and 0 on tough days. Not 50 miles when it's easy and 2 miles in hard. Find your sustainable, consistent pace March it in good times, march it in bad times. That's how you win while others burn out or give up. Point number 9. First who, then what? Let's go deeper on getting the right people because this is where most organization fails. Collins found that good to great companies were rigorous, not ruthless with people decisions. Rigorous versus ruthless. Ruthless means cutting people at the first sign of trouble, treating people as interchangeable parts lacking empathy. Rigorous means having a high standard, making changes decisively when necessary, but treating people with respect throughout. The three practical versions. If you had to hire this person again today, knowing what you know, would you? If the answer is no, you need to make a change. Don't confuse the decision with the action. You can treat someone respectfully while helping them transition out. Is this person in the right seat on the bus? You need to check it. Take a real example. Circuit City. When Circuit City executes realized some people were not performing, they asked, is this a wrong person problem or a wrong seat problem? They found that many struggling employees were simply in roles that did not match their strengths. But rigorously uh, assessing and repositioning people, they improved performance without losing talent. Sadly, Circuit City later abandoned this principle under new leadership, eventually leading to bankruptcy. A painful reminder what you cannot abandon, what made you great. Point number 10. Pre- Preserve the core, stimulate progress. Here's the final principle, and it's the one that determines whether your greatness lost or fades. Good to great companies understand that greatness requires both stability and change. Most companies are good at one or the other. Great companies master both. Preserve the core. Your core values and purpose should never change. These are the essential and enduring principles that guide your organization. They are not strategies, practices, or goals. They are why you exist. Take a real example. Johnson and Johnson's credos. In 1943, Robert Wood Johnson wrote the Johnson and Johnson credo, starting that their first responsibility was to patients and customers, then employees, then communities, and finally shareholders. 1982, this was tested when someone poisoned 10 bottles, killing 7 people. Johnson Johnson immediately recalled 31 million bottles, costing over $100 million. Most companies would have minimized, blamed, or covered up. Johnson Johnson preserved their core values even though it hurt a financial result. Their reputation soared, and within months, Tylenol regained market leadership because people trust companies that preserve their core values even when it's costly. Take a real example. Boeing's 707. Boeing's core purpose was advancing aviation. In 1950s, they bet the entire company, literally everything, on building the 707, the first commercial jet airline. They did not bet the company because they were reckless. They did it because it aligned with their core purpose of advancing aviation, and because not doing it would have meant abandoning the purpose. The 707 was a massive success and established Boeing as an industry leader for decades. That's stimulating progress while preserving the core. Finally, let me leave you with this truth. Greatness is not a function of circumstance. Greatness is function of conscious choice and discipline.